guys want to come on up? When they say who you're in business with matters, it's moments like yesterday that you feel it the most. So grateful for you guys. Of course. Man, surrounded by these handsome guys. Yeah. It's a good morning. Well, you guys want to give us a little introduction, how you got started in real estate, and then how maybe you transitioned into investing. Obviously, you all still do real estate, but a little bit of background would be fantastic.
Is this working? Yeah. I'm Joe Balashri. I'm with the Huff Group. And I actually got into real estate because I wanted to get into investing. So I kind of started that route. Everything I wanted to do was own rentals and buy investment properties. And my lovely wife was like, you talk about this all the time. Why don't you just start selling real estate? So that's kind of how I got into selling real estate. Initially, my investment journey started with single-family rentals in the Topeka area. That's where I was living when I started, and also a much lower barrier to entry, and I wanted to rent to college kids. So the whole goal was to take a 3-4 bedroom house that could rent for $1,000 to $1,200 a month to a family, and take it and rent it by the bedroom to some college kids for $400 a bedroom, and force that appreciation of cash flow through that realm. It also left me to not have to do a lot of renovations because college kids don't care. So
that's right.
The first 3 houses I bought had no dishwashers, and nobody batted an eye. So it was a very low barrier to entry. It was very easy to get into. It was very much seamless for me, and at a time when I was making a career change, so I didn't want to be over leveraging myself financially. So and then fast forward to kind of joining the Huff Group and getting around a lot more and different investors, started getting into flipping from there. So very new into the flipping journey.
Sorry, Calaway. Overall, can you kind of give us a snapshot of what you've done in the last, whether it's flips or single families, kind of a snapshot of your world?
So currently I own 7 doors rental properties all in Topeka, and then I am working on my 3rd flip right now. So and I've had some 3 very unique journeys through these flips. So that's
as we do, right? Thanks, Joe.
You still buying in Topeka? I have a house for you. Yeah. We'll talk after this.
I love it.
So my name's Calaway McQueenie. I joined KW about 2 years ago when we switched over. I was previously an engineer at Burns McDonnell, and that just didn't fit my personality. I did not like it. I really liked, eating what you kill, getting rewarded for working hard, that kind of thing. And so I just sent a story to him where I got into this for the investment. And so I bought an Airbnb with my salary from Burns, and I put 3% down, which was like everything I had, and moved into it, worked on it for 7 months, and then had to move into my mom's basement to be able to list it on Airbnb. And that was like my start into real estate.
Wow.
And so got my first booking for $800, and I was just sold. I was like, that's all I need to see, just $800, and the rest is history. So I went on LinkedIn, started looking for some job in real estate. Like, I wanted to do something, but I didn't want to be a real estate agent. No offense, that just was my mindset at the time. So I found this company called New Western and became an acquisitions guy for them. Spent about 1.5 years there, had a lot of success, did about 165 transactions, and that's really what kicked it off. Was I learned how to do, true investment deals all across the board in Kansas City, got to meet all the different people, and eventually learned enough that, I want to do this for myself. And so my partner, Jack, and I, unfortunately he couldn't make it today, my business partner, came to Keller Williams and started McQueenie Goodwin, our team. And we've been doing, real estate full-time on our own since then. We bought 107 houses last year. I think this year we've already crossed that number. Yeah, a lot of flips, a lot of rentals. That's my story.
He's being modest. Extremely modest.
That's why I asked him to be up here. Hello? Okay. Yeah, so my name is Matt Webb. I got in real estate about 4.5 years ago. I got in because I had an agent who had helped me buy a house, and it didn't go that well. So then I thought, you know what, maybe I should do this myself. And really, I just want to be an agent. I thought, hey, let's just, eat what you kill, sell a lot of houses. I sold I think my 5th deal was a $6 million apartment complex in Lee Summit. I went to go pick up a check, and this little old lady said, she was like 70, 80 years old, still selling houses, and she was like, you need to take that money and invest it. And I'm like, in what? She said, real estate. I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm just here to sell houses. And so I took that money and bought my first flip about 6 months later and got addicted to it, and just been selling houses and flipping houses.
Ever since. Wow. And it's funny how when that one bad experience happens, how it becomes that catalyst for something incredible. I mean, think if you would have had a good experience with your agent.
I wouldn't be here.
Exactly. Well, Matt, tell us a little bit about your process. What's it look like underneath the hood? How do you manage the contractors, the timelines, the budgets? With that many flips and everything going on in your world, what does that look like for you guys on the day-to-day, month basis? If
I was to be honest, it's a hot mess most of the time. But I think now it has a rhythm. Like, I've done 50 now since starting, really about 3.5 years now. But it's a lot of just knowing the process of, what to expect from a contractor, what kind of finishes I'm looking for, the location. So, it's different. I grew up in Raytown, so I can say this. It's different flipping a house in Raytown than it is flipping a house in Overland Park. So you have to look at, hey, what's my demographic? What's my buyer profile? What contractor can do a house in Overland Park? What's better suited for one in, Raytown? And making sure that, budgets, our speed to get it done, because it costs money. I think I have a house right now that it's $116 a day. So every day it doesn't sell, that's money out of my pocket. So I have to make sure that, hey, I'm staying up on them, holding their feet to the fire, putting contracts together to say, hey, if you're going to finish in 5 weeks, and you said 5 weeks, well, if it goes a day past 5, well, we're going to start taking money out of your pocket because it costs me money.
Right.
So making sure you're communicating, you're having all your material there, things like that, and building relationships. It's a team. It's not just me. I want to make sure they understand that, hey, I'm here to see them be successful and give them more houses, just as, hopefully they do the same for me, and they'll look out for me in the end as well to say, hey, we missed this. There's something that needs to be done. We're not going to charge you. We want to take care of it because you're giving us so much work. So trying to make sure they understand that.
And that relationship, that back and forth, taking care of each other.
It's all about relationships in real estate, so
Absolutely.
Even in flipping.
Calaway, what you guys do is a little bit different. You're managing a large team now, and you've got a huge acquisitions business. Tell us about the day-to-day world of McQueenie Goodwin that you guys are dealing in.
That's hard. Every day is different. We have gotten really big into software because, we have over 30 projects right now going, and trying to buy about 15 to 20 houses a month, spread that over just 3 months, because usually projects take about 3 months. There's 60 houses at any given time we're looking at, and trying to track a lead and make sure we're converting it. So I've been getting really nerdy. We just bought Salesforce, and I've been going through it for like 2 months with the implementation, getting a lot of different like custom dashboards built that are just specific to our business to be able to track all of our different metrics. But I'm still very involved training our team because I'm still very new. They're even newer than me. I haven't been doing this that long. So I spend a lot of time in person with them, and I try to make it out to houses at this point, but not been able to as much as I used to be able to. So we rely a lot on like Company Cam, for example. My business runs on Company Cam. I get daily updates of all the different houses that we're working on that are time and location stamped, and that's really how I track everything now, because it can replace me having to drive to every single house and look at everything. So
that's brilliant.
I don't know if I answered the question well, but.
No, I think you did. It just sounds like you're using technology to leverage your own time and to scale what you're doing in terms of your portfolio.
That's the only way you can.
And with that many projects happening simultaneously, you just can't be everywhere at the same time. Yeah. Joe, obviously you're just getting started. You're kind of getting your feet wet as an investor. What's working for you right now in that space?
So it's funny, as as Calaway's talking about his systems, and I started out, I made every mistake on the first one, except for one, which was I didn't overshoot the numbers. I was very, very conservative on my numbers, so I ended up making $3,000 after about 5 months of agony. But the big thing was I didn't lose money, which is like, for me on the first one, I was just like, don't want to lose money. But I started the opposite. I kind of started where Calaway is now. I tried to anyway, because I was selling. You know, my main business is retail and selling. So when I got into it, I was like, I don't want to take up all of my time, focus on this flip, and then you know how real estate is. You stop making your calls, you stop doing your lead gen, and then all of a sudden your business falls off. So I tried to kind of take that approach, and it did not work at all. So what I've done now and what I've learned and what I'm doing now is being a lot more hands-on. So I have also only flipped in Olathe, which is where I live. So not that I don't want to get out of there, but I drive by my flip every morning. And almost every afternoon when I'm on my way home, I stop by there to make sure. I want my guys to see me. I don't trust people, and mainly because of what's happened the first time. And second one was good, but now I've got a new crew, and I'm trying to get these systems down and get these relationships. So I want to be very visible. So my process is very hands-on right now. It's kind of resigning myself to understanding I've got to be a GC. I can't hire a GC to do these projects if I want to make money. And now trying to navigate how do I do that in as little time as possible, because I don't want it to take up all of my lead gen time. Or, you know, when you've got 5 clients out looking for houses, it's really hard to stop by your flip house and make sure they're doing their job. So that's where I'm kind of at. Mass chaos at all times, best way to describe it.
And sometimes that's just the best way to start, is to jump in with both feet and learn hard knocks. You mentioned Olathe. Calaway, Matt, what are some of your hot spots in Kansas City that you guys love to invest in?
Randy's in here, so I'm going to be really PC on this.
Okay.
I like really good school districts. I like places where there's, you know, jobs, things like that, appreciating areas. Thank you. Yeah. See, this is why. No, but really, like, I look for, you know, places where there's jobs. There's a, you know, maybe there's a big hub around there for jobs. There's good school districts. There's a place where, you know, people like to hang out. It's maybe a really hip, trendy area. Maybe they're putting a new road in, or, you know, also look at, you know, how far are we from a Starbucks and Target? Because those big companies, they put a lot of money into figuring out, you know, where to put their stores, their storefronts. So therefore, if I'm going to be somewhere close, that's going to be someplace that's going to help me, because people love going there. They love to get their coffee, and they love Target.
Did you get that from Grant Cardone?
No, not him. There's somebody else
He
that said that.
says
Yeah.
that, yeah. I really like where houses are worth $200,000. That's like my sweet spot. So that obviously, as you can imagine right now, is all across Kansas City. I'll go anywhere in Kansas City. I don't like, can I say it, the hood, you know, don't get me in trouble for that. You know, east of 71, I've actually done a lot there, but I don't love it. I get robbed a lot over there. I got robbed like 3 times last week, so just still getting robbed. But it's hard. Sorry. It's hard to stop that from happening when, you know, you go to some of those places, but we do our best now. But the reason why I love the $200K ARV is because I know, you know, obviously, like I mentioned, we're working on a lot of different houses, so it sounds very risky, but I like to stay in that band because you can always rent your way out of it if a project goes over budget or for some reason it doesn't sell. I think it's really risky when you're starting out to, you know, go pick off a Joco flip, because yes, you might say it's a great area, a great location, should sell really well, but what if it doesn't and you get stuck with a $400,000 house? I mean, what do? Do you have $100,000 sitting around to refinance out of that? How do you cover that DSCR ratio? So there's a lot of things on the back end exiting the property into a refinance that I would highly recommend learning in your personal situation of how to navigate that. And for us, it's been the $200K houses. We can always get $1,300 to $1,500 in rent, and, you know, refinance our way out and leave no money in the deal. And then if it doesn't sell, it doesn't sell. You know, no problem. We have enough projects going that, you know, we can generate revenue off of other deals, and we're not too focused on one house selling. So, yeah, I'll go anywhere that there's a $200K house.
You said hood, and Randy made a beeline for the door.
He did. That's okay. It's a safe space for him. Do you have anything to add to that, Joe?
Matt actually made a really good comment at a different event. He said, I'm not buying anywhere that I can't have something from Amazon delivered and be worried that it's going to get taken from the front door. And another thing I know Matt is like me, we both have young kids, and we like to take our kids places. So that's another thing. Like, if you're getting into this, I would just say somewhere you are comfortable with. Like, don't push your envelope and go somewhere where you're not comfortable driving there and leaving your truck parked outside or worried about taking your kid. Make it comfortable. But I know that's one thing Matt said that really resonated with me. If you can't order off Amazon and deliver it there and not pick it up the next day because somebody stole it, that's probably not an area you want to be in.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I mean, areas in Kansas City where you don't feel safe or your kids don't feel safe might not be great areas. Where do you guys source your deals? Where are some of your hot spots that you're finding right now?
You're looking at one of them. But agents, as an agent, I feel like we have, deals get tossed on a silver platter to you because you're an agent. You go to the houses, you see people who have houses that, I go to every listing that I have that's under $300K, I give them an offer. It might be a low offer, but their circumstances might require that. Then I tell them, hey, here's what you can fix it up for and sell it, and here's what you can sell it right now. So I tell agents, hey, I'm going to close. You bring me a deal. You can represent me if you want to. I'm actually starting to work on a campaign now where, hey, you can represent me on the buy side and you can represent me on the sell side because I don't care about that. I want the meat that's in the middle of it. So a lot of my deals come from agents, wholesalers, and direct to consumers.
That's a great point. And I love what you said too. Make sure that you're prepared to walk into any presentation with an offer. And if you can't purchase it, there is a way to find a way, especially if you are connected with the office the way you guys are. So keep that in mind.
I own a home investors franchise. That's Jack and I's business outside of Keller Williams. So if you ever seen the We Buy Ugly Houses, the big yellow billboards, we own a franchise of that in Kansas City. So that is probably 90% of my time is running that with him, and it's very marketing focused. It's truly just a marketing company, and we spend 6 figures now a month on marketing on that, and so that brings a lot of leads, and so that is where we generate most of our deals. I wouldn't say all, but I still do, like Matt said, I work with a lot of agent relationships where people know that we're a good buyer. We'll close on a deal even if there's limited access or if we need to work with a situation. So a lot of times agents will bring us deals that it's usually situation oriented. They don't want showings. They don't want people seeing the inside of their house, that type of thing. So we'll get a lot of referrals from stuff like that.
Mine have 100% been agent relationships. Even my rentals in Topeka, I've got a couple agents out there that I have good relationships with, and they bring me off-market deals that but one of the big reasons I want to get into flipping, and Brian Huff taught me this, he goes into every listing presentation with 3 goals: to list it as it is, suggest renovations or updates to list it for the highest amount of money, or to buy it. And I would say most of his deals now, he just goes into a listing presentation and walks out with a contract because what the seller wants and what he's able to give them just makes sense, right? But all of my flips, all 3 of my flips have come from agents. One was a POE on our POE. I looked at it. It was 210 in Olathe, which I was like, that's really low. And it sat for a week, and I called the agent, and she was like, she's not in this office anymore, but she said, listen, Joe, I just saw this house for the first time, and 210 is way too high. And I said, well, let me come see it. I went and saw it. It was the nastiest house I've seen. And I offered a 183, and they took it. It was so. And then the other deal was the one I'm working on right now. Matt sent my way. So just having relationships with people, letting them know what you're doing, learning from them, and you never know where that next deal is going to come. But having another, kind of gun in your arsenal as far as being a real estate agent to be where you go into a distressed situation and somebody wants out. And the second deal I bought was a guy that I told him he could get 150 for his house. And he's like, I don't want to show my house. I don't want to clean this place out. I have 30 years of stuff in here. I just want to be gone. I said, what do you need? He said, 130. I said, I'll give you 130. And it worked out. So a lot of times when I first got into this, some people, and myself included, thought, maybe it's shady to buy somebody's house for 20 grand unless what they can get it for it. But to this guy, 20 grand was a lot, and he did not want to it was worth it to him just to pick up his stuff and leave and let somebody else deal with it. So I think you can provide a service to people and still make money at the same time.
I love that. Can you guys walk us through just like some simple numbers of how, say you're looking at a property and you're trying to analyze that property to decide if it's a good flip or not. Based on what your labor, your construction cost, your supplies cost, what does that kind of look like? Can you guys break that down for us when you're analyzing a property?
Kind of touches on what I was mentioning earlier with the 200K ARV. So personally, I love to be all into a house for 75%. I think that's a really common rule of thumb for people. So in that scenario, if it's worth 200 on the back end, I try to be in it for 150,000. So that includes purchase and renovation. And so that usually leaves room for about 30 to 35 grand in profit. Obviously those numbers fluctuate if the value goes higher. So sometimes, Johnson County, for example, you can't really get deals at 75%. If you do, you got a home run. Those are usually closer to 80%. But I would say still a rule of thumb, if you're making, between 25 and 35 grand on the flip, you're in pretty good margins. And of course, you want to be conservative on ARV. You don't want to be banking on an aggressive price when you're listing it. You want to be within the wheelhouse of the comps around you, and you want to make sure you put out a good product. So you can't skimp on things and just price right now, and you'll do fine.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so I'm all in on 75%. That's how I run my numbers. But I also have a threshold of like, okay, if I can make, 60, 70 grand, and I have to be in at 78, 79%. All right, I might have to bring a little more money to the table, but I'll take it because I look at it as a realtor, and you do your math of dollar per hour, all that kind of stuff, and you say, okay, well, if I sell a house and I make 60 grand, that's like selling $2 million worth of real estate and making 3%. So I'd rather go ahead and, hey, let me put in 4 or 5 weeks, and a flip might take me 7-8 hours. Well, that's great money. So 75%, but I also look at what's the profit and the time that's going to take.
I love that. It's a great rule of thumb, 75%, or then, like you said, a minimum number of profit that you're expected. Because to tie up that much capital doesn't always make sense. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, a lot of times flipping looks so glamorous, right? Everybody's like, oh, it's HGTV, this is so fun. But what you don't always see is the flooded basements, and the contractors don't show up. They bid against you. What are some of your horror stories? Tell us about the ugly side of what this looks like.
I got at least 2. I had one house last year where I bought in a place where I don't buy. I think east or west of 71, someplace down there, and got robbed like 3 or 4 times. And that was like $18,000. Ended up selling a year later, and took a loss on it. But it worked out. You learn. And then another one had a basement that flooded last year. I think we had like 6 inches in like a couple hours, something like that. And I was in Florida, and the house was going to close in 2 days. And I get told that, hey, there's water in the basement. We did our final walkthrough. There's mold in the basement. We still want the house, but it's $15,000 later that you gotta get that mitigated, put new carpet down, all that kind of good stuff, and still end up making good money on the deal, but it's just another headache to have to deal with.
I've had everything happen. Oh my gosh. I've had floods. I've had people live in a house without running water or utilities, and then I have to do an occupancy period, and I get the house from them, and they've gone 3 years living in this house with no running water, but they go to the bathroom in there, so you can imagine. I had a house recently that was down in Osawatomie that we were working on, and then there was like a microburst, and it literally just blew over in the wind. Like the house just fell over.
What?
Yeah. Insurance.
I've had full renovations happen, put a tenant in there, and then I guess that I had a mice problem that I wasn't aware of, and they chewed through the wall and got into the oven. And so when she turned on the oven for the first time, there was quite the experience.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, had roof issues where someone doesn't seal up the flashing next to the chimney. That's a common spot. Water gets in there. Had the roof or had the ceiling in the living room and kitchen completely collapse. Had full sewer line failures. Had 4 feet of water in the basement when people flushed tampons. Had people steal. Had a couple people die. Tenants die in there. Yeah. So sorry to.
You think you've had a bad
This
day.
this is the real side of what happens when
Yes.
you get these houses. So yeah, if you have any of those situations, I mean, I'd be happy to help you guys through it because I've probably experienced it. So yeah.
Oh, that's great.
I don't know if I can top that, but I had my first flip was probably every stereotypical issue you'd think came up. Day one, bought it. The next day we had torrential downpour and water got into the basement that we didn't know about. So, and then contractor, took my money to do somebody else's job and then couldn't find another job to get their money to do my job. So had that whole situation, had to fire him. I got into a situation where I'd given him so much money that I had to kind of string him along, and actually he still hits me up thinking he's going to get some work from me because I was like, I need to egg this on as long as I can to mitigate my loss. And then had to fire him, bring in another crew to finish it off, and then got through inspections, and the inspector said the whole east side wall is going to cave in, and I'm like, what the hell is going, and that cost me another, they wanted to pier an entire side of that it cost me another 10 grand. And anyway, so every little thing, but no dead people, no feces or anything like that, thank God. But that was my first flip.
And you'll never forget, right? Let's talk about money. A lot of times, especially when you're first getting started and investing, that seems to be the biggest challenge for most people. What are some ways that you guys finance properties or ways that you would recommend for an agent or someone else getting started to do their first deal?
Well, I can tell you how I did my first deal. So again, getting back to relationships, Matt and I have a group of guys that we get together, a kind of mastermind group, and we just kind of talk about business. And through our first meeting, I sat down with Matt, and we're talking about how he got into it. And I'm like, now that makes a lot more sense and gave me a lot more confidence around it. So I was very fortunate to marry very well, and I have a beautiful wife that happens to have a father who's got a lot of money. So I asked him if I could borrow some money to jump into this venture. I did it professionally. I had a full list and a presentation for him. I sat down with him. I said, hey, this is what I want to do. I would like to get to the point where I can do this to scale, and I'm going to plan on using hard money to do it, but I need to get started. And fortunately, he was able to partner with me, and my brother-in-law as well. So they put up the money. We are partners. I do all the work, and right now it's not a great deal. I mean, at the end of the day, they're making just as much money as I am, and I'm doing all the work, but without their money, I couldn't do it. So that is how I started. They both gave me enough money to buy my first flip. I used Julie Dean for basically a HELOC, or however you want to, she's probably got a fancier term for it, but to get money to do the renovation, and then sold it and paid back her loan, paid back my father-in-law and brother-in-law, and we all got $1,000 to split at the end. But that was my goal to jump into it, because if you're going to go the hard money route, which is they're way more well-versed in, you're going to need some experience. And so kind of my goal is to utilize the private money that I've got to build up a little bit of a reputation and a system, and then use that system to go with the confidence to use hard money and make more money. Does that make sense? So that was what gave me the confidence and the lowest barrier to entry. I knew that if I didn't have to borrow money from an institution, I didn't have to put up all this. Luckily, my father-in-law and brother-in-law are very hands-off. And if I can make that happen, then one, they're gonna love me a little bit more, but also it's gonna give me the confidence to use money from somebody else to scale, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. It's a great way to get started, too.
I give you guys some of my stories. So, I mean, the first deal I bought, I used conventional financing, 3% down, and then did the rehab just out of pocket. The next couple deals I did were similar, where I used a bank, again, put 20% down those times, and then did the rehab out of pocket. And then the first true flip that I did, I probably had the worst terms in town because I had no experience. I didn't have, unfortunately, a rich person that I knew. Had to just work with what I had. And so it was like 16% interest, 4 points, and I had to bring like 30 grand to buy this house. And so, but I was 23 years old with no experience, and the guy looked at me like, "Yep, these are my terms." It's like, fair. Okay. And thankfully did that deal well. Met some more hard money lenders through that process. Started getting a little bit better of terms. And then now I've gone to the point too where I do use a lot of private money. I've met some private individuals that essentially just older people. They used to be in my shoes. Now they'd rather just lend the money instead of, chasing deals like I am. So no, those are really good terms. But on the more commercial side where, anybody can get access to it, I still use Calaway, probably in about half of my deals because they have a really, really good program. It's like a $17.50 origination for me and then a 10.5% interest rate. They usually have a doc fee of $9.99, but outside of that, it's about $3 grand to close it and then 10.5% on the interest rate. And they'll do a 12 to 24 month term. So that's accessible to anybody. Just go online to Calaway, and if you want to put in a deal, they actually have a really easy process. You just put in all the info, and then they'll spit out the numbers for what you can expect to pay and what that would look like for you for cash to close. So, yeah, I still use them all the time.
I would say this: don't let the money be the part that scares you, because if you have a deal, someone's out there that's going to lend. Like, that's not the hard part. It's finding the deal. So I started with hard money, and you paid 12%, 6 month, 1 year loan term, really easy. But then as we started doing more, more people started wanting to be a part of it, and so we've raised about $2 million worth of funds so we can buy houses and do all that kind of good stuff. So I think one of those things is just learning how to have the conversation. If you learn the conversation about money and lending, then it makes it so much easier for someone to lend to you because they trust you. Because they say, okay, you're not just a realtor who knows how to sell a house. You actually know how the money works, how much they're going to get paid, their return on investment, things like that. So learn that side of the money, but the money shouldn't be the thing that stops you from finding a house. Find the house, the money will be there.
I love that. I mean, it's such a great school of thought to know that once you've done your first property, once you do that, it's almost like tuition into investing. You almost have to pay that as a fee to jump into the game. And once you do that, you can start to really scale your systems like these guys have.
And I would say too, don't get into a deal like when you're getting into it. If you're just starting, just what you said, pay for the experience. I mean, my first deal I was supposed to make like 60 grand on, and I made $3,000. But at the end of the day, like if I got so much knowledge and learned so much that is invaluable that now when I put that to work, it's going to yield way more than 60 grand. So don't be afraid to jump into it too, knowing that, hey, you may not, don't make a risky deal off the numbers, right? But like, don't get caught up in I got to make 30% on my first deal. Just get a deal under your belt and make it work and learn, and then take that experience and make it to the next one.
So good. Well, I have so many questions. I want to make sure that you guys get an opportunity to ask yours too. So take a second, begin thinking about those. One of my last questions for you guys though is, how are you using AI right now? That's a thing that our team is really excited about, and the ways that we're learning to use it is probably a lot different than what you guys are utilizing it for. I'd love to hear what specifically you guys are doing with it.
Yeah, so I don't have a creative bone in my body. Like I don't know, is the left or right side of your brain that does the creative side? It's not there. So like ChatGPT, you can literally take a picture and you can put it in ChatGPT and you can ask for design ideas, and you can even get really granular with paint colors, who the paint manufacturer is, all that kind of stuff, and they'll give you a design. And you can also say, hey, for the buyer profile in the zip code for this price point, and it will give you, hey, this is what they're going to be looking for, here's what they're going to need. You can do every room like that. I do some of that, but that's probably the biggest thing I use for that. And then I also, I think ChatGPT is just the easiest way to do it when it comes to contractors, where you want to get your material. It'll give you a material list with SKUs from the actual store. So then if you want to, you can just copy paste into like Home Depot and have it search, and you can add it to a cart or to a list, and it makes it that simple.
I love that.
I've been, like I said, working on the Salesforce system and recently putting in this AI tool that lets me track all of the sales of the counties that I'm tracking. And so I can actually see who bought what the LLC was, and then skip trace who they were. And so on my leads that I'm, tracking down, working with the seller, trying to buy their house, and all of a sudden they sell to a, competition, somebody else. 3 or 4 weeks goes by. Once that gets recorded, my AI will tell me who it was, when it closed, how much they paid, all these different things. So I track my competition constantly through that to make sure I'm knowing who's buying what are they paying for it,
Wow.
Where did I go wrong? And so it really sharpens up me and my capabilities to make sure I'm getting aggressive in the appointments and buying houses where I need to buy them to stay competitive.
I use AI. I use ChatGPT as basically my personal assistant. I get on there almost every morning, and I start at like, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you come up with a list for what I need to do for my contractors? Can you take this list or these scope of work and put it into a professional scope of work and a spreadsheet? That's primarily what I use it for. I use it a ton for social media as well. I'm like Matt. I'm not super creative, so I let AI do it all. They come up, I don't know, I do these silly skit videos that I think are kind of funny, and just to get some outreach to my followers and my network. And I basically put it in there. This is what I want these people to sound like, and they spit out an entire script and all sorts of different topics and things like that. So it's great, but I'm still kind of learning what I need to do with it. But right now, it's just like my personal assistant that gives me a lot of advice.
Thanks, guys. No, it's so neat to see what it can do and just the potential out there. Any last words of advice for agents that are wanting to jump in? They're not sure what to do, not sure how to do it. What would you guys tell them?
I would say go to all the investment stuff that our group or KWAP puts on. I would say talk to other agents that are doing flips and doing what you want to do. I'm a big believer that you are the sum of the 5 people you surround yourself with. It's the reason I joined the Huff group, to be honest. I wanted to get more into investing, and I looked at a group that, 1, is very successful, but 2, almost everybody on the team does some sort of investing, and all of it looks different. So I wanted to be around people that were actively investing and looking at real estate in more ways than just how can I sell this house or how can I find a house for this buyer. So surrounding yourself with good people, and then like I said, I jumped into this because of a conversation. I jumped into the flips. I wanted to, and I had some traction, but it was a conversation with Matt that really kind of just opened my eyes to it and made it very doable or just very simple. And so having conversation with people, making sure you're building those connections, and then 2 years later, a year later, Matt's sending me a deal. So that would be my advice. Network with the people that you want to emulate.
I don't remember that conversation, but I'm glad it worked out. I would say,
Damn.
like, no, it's a long
You're
time.
gonna do them like that.
No, it's a long time ago. You said 2 years ago. That's a long time ago. Gosh.
Matt has such advice for everybody that he gets that a lot, apparently.
Anyway, no, I'd say just start. I think what's great about investing, it gives you you understand a house. You walk into a house, it makes you even more valuable to a consumer, someone who's looking to buy, and you can tell them, hey, yeah, we can fix that. I have a contractor that can put in countertops for you for $2,000. Hey, we can get the house painted. Here's my discount for this. Here's other things that can happen. If they want to buy a fixer upper and do it themselves, great. I have vendors that can do this. I know, it's not just, hey, yeah, throw some paint on the wall. No, here's some things that you should do. And then it also helps with, being able to kind of predict your income, because, there's ebbs and flows of the market, seasonality, things like that. I think good realtors are pretty level, but at the same time, you get to say, okay, hey, I'm going to flip 4 or 5 deals a year. Those 4 or 5 deals could make you $100,000+ or even more than that. But that just gives you a chance to say, okay, hey, it might be slow in December and January. Well, okay, that's fine. I have these other deals that are going to help me. And then that's also marketing, because if everyone thinks that social media is reality. It's not. But they think, oh, all you post is the good deals, nice houses. They think you're an expert at listing houses. Well, no, they're just my houses. Well, great. Well, that brings more business. More people see you're doing deals. More people want to work with you because it matters who you're in business with, and people, see you're doing a lot of houses. So it helps you to be able to, grow your business and to provide income and to provide some predictability to your business.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. So many good words, so much wisdom. Let's open it up. What questions do you guys have for the panel? There's so much wisdom up here on the stage. So, Tyler, Sarah, can you help out? Kevin, I think, had one. Oh, Elizabeth, okay.
Hi, thank you for sharing all the information. About taxes. What do you do when the time comes to pay taxes? When you flip like so many houses during the year?
I really love my rentals, not for rental income, but for taxes on depreciation. So if you guys have rental properties, you can do cost segregation studies, and those will be able to accelerate the depreciation of the properties that you own, and you can actually put that against your active income being an active real estate person. So our business makes a good amount of money, but because of the rentals that we buy, we're able to relieve a lot of money off of the taxes that we have to pay. So if you haven't looked into that before and you own some rental properties, I would highly recommend looking into cost segregation studies because they're worth their weight in gold.
Yep, I've done it, and I do it. It does help. My question is, how do you spend $1 million on advertising? I mean, that is amazing. Like, I can't even fathom, like, where does that money go, and how do you calculate, like, I'm going to make $1.5 million, and your average price point's $200,000, $35,000 profit. I mean, you're talking, and that's a nut. Like, that's huge.
Yeah. So that's where, I look at it monthly. So if I'm spending $120,000 on marketing that month, it takes me 4 to 5 deals to pay that off in terms of selling those deals. And, it's kind of like a cash flow cycle. So I'm looking at 3 to 4 months any given time. I'm more looking to cover 3 to 4 months at a time because in all reality, buying the house, doing what I need to do it, then selling it, 3 to 4 months is more that timeline. So I more need to survive that chunk of time. But as long as I'm doing, like I said, 3 to 5 sales a month, I cover my marketing costs. And then if I'm doing 15 to 20 a month, all that on top is profit. So getting into it, it's billboards, radio, mailers, TV, commercials. I mean, we have stuff everywhere. Paid search on Google. It adds up quickly. I mean, you're sending hundreds of thousands of mailers to houses, so that is probably the biggest cost. And then next is billboards. Those are really expensive. We have like 26 out right now. TV ads, you see those. Radio, we've lowered our radio a little bit. But then paid social and paid search, that's a huge one. Making sure you're ranking on Google. You're seeing us on Facebook and Instagram. So yeah, somewhat. So we have a license, and then we actually have a local marketing rep, and we meet monthly to place our dollars. So, we actively place it with this guy and go through it all. Homevestors is really just the brand nationally, and we have the right to use their brand. If that makes sense.
Great question. Yes. Yes.
Do you guys have to pull permits to do the repairs, and or you have to be licensed general contractors to do that, or how does that work?
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Yes, because, I've gotten caught before. I shouldn't say caught, but I've been working on something that I didn't know required a permit, and the city comes and shuts us down. So I've just learned the hard way. That's so much worse to do. Just get the permits up front, and then if the city comes by, you can be like, yep, here's my info. Here's all the stuff. Here's everything pulled. And then, yes, we use GCs. So especially, on foundation and structural stuff, you don't want to ever not, have a permit on something like that, because that could really bite you on a sale, or if something goes wrong and you didn't do things to code, that's on you. So yes.
It depends. So, and what I mean by that, structural, all that kind of stuff, yes. Certain electrical things, yes. But with the houses I'm buying, it's mainly cosmetic. Like we're maybe putting new sheetrock up, we're putting paint, maybe changing the electrical outlets, putting new lights in, kitchen cabinets, maybe some minor plumbing, but we're not going in and having to do like a gut job where if that's the case, then yes, we're going to pull permits. But it depends. If it's like something you can do yourself, it's not going to need a permit. And you got to know the municipalities of where you're going into and making sure that, hey, all right, they're going to be a stickler on this. We need to have them come in and do it. Because I've seen it where, hey, you do a flip, and then a year, 2 years later, they go to sell the house, and then the city comes back and says, hey, that's different. That's not what we had on this house, and how did that happen? And then they have to pull permits, and it's a year-long process to get that done.
But are you guys general contractors?
No.
No. Some areas you can, as the owner, pull them, which is nice. So it depends on the municipality, but a lot of them, as the owner, you can pull the permit.
Good question. Anybody else? Questions for them? No? Anything online? Oh.
I have a question for you guys. For the people that haven't done a deal yet, is it not knowing how to look at the deal, or is it not knowing how to get the money to pay for it that's keeping you from doing it?
Sorry. Yeah, I would say money for me. And I know you kind of asked the question of, like, as a beginner, what would you do to start? But still, it's just like if I don't have the cash flow, it feels almost like an impossibility right now, or like a little out of my reach. But yeah, I would just say it's money over anything.
I'd practice running deals on Calaway and just inputting scenarios that you're seeing, because, like I said, it's free. And if you find a deal that you're like, okay, what would this mean for me? Put in the address, put in the rehab that you want, and put in your information, and it'll punch out how much you would need, what they can offer you, what your interest rate is. And I think if you do that enough times, one of those times you'll be like, all right, this is worth it, I'm going to do it.
A question from Facebook for Calaway. Could you explain a little bit more about what you do with DSCR?
Yeah, so very common 1.2 DSCR ratio. It means that you need to have $1,200 in rent for every $1,000 of debt service that you have. You have to make sure that you can cover your debt service. So whenever you're looking at the rental income compared to what your mortgage is going to be, that's that multiple that you have to make sure that you cover. If you cover that, you're going to get a good rate. If you don't, you go down to a 1.0, which is just a 1-to-1. The rent you get covers straight the debt that you have. Your rate's going to be a little bit higher. You might pay a little bit more for that. And then I haven't seen many lenders go below that if it's a 0.9 or those kind of things. And that's where I say early on, that Johnson County house, let's say you flipped a Johnson County house and it's $400,000 that you have out on it, you're probably not going to see a 1.0 DSCR. And so that's why I was saying, do you have $100,000 to, lower that mortgage on it to be able to cover till it is a 1.2 or 1.0 DSCR. So that's where you can get caught. It's great to have a house that has, let's move it even higher. Maybe it's a $500,000 house that you have and you're only $350 into it, but it's not selling. Great, you have this phantom equity, but if you can't refinance out of it, it really doesn't mean anything. So I don't get caught up in our portfolio's phantom equity because it's not like tomorrow I can just cash it out. I always try to be real with myself of, am I covering our debt service? Is there a little bit left on top for repairs? And are we putting some away after that? So definitely be sure to check out your options on refinance lenders. The best ones are local banks when you're first starting out, because usually it's only like a $500 doc fee. I'm always fee conscious just because of the volume we do. Getting hit with origination fees every time really adds up. So I'll actually happily pay a little bit more on a rate if that means I'm not, getting hit so hard on a fee. So, but local banks in the beginning would be the best to bring your rental refi to. And then after that, there's brokers out there. I mean, Leader One is a great one. So I've seen a lot of people use them. Yeah.
I have a question. How, Matt, huge fan. What do you guys, what's the percentage? For me, it's not money. I'll be honest, it's risk. I don't even know what a general contractor should get paid and how, what's their percentage? What's their takeoff? There's so much I don't know about flipping that I definitely want to know.
So I run my numbers off about $30 a square foot if it's mainly cosmetic. If it's more than that, then it's probably going to a bigger rehab. Then you're probably looking at $35 to $40 a square foot. And that usually is labor and material. But you're not looking at the Bordners to do your siding. You're not looking at these big companies to come in and do the rehab. You're looking for the guy you go to Home Depot who is that he's in there every day, and he has a good rapport with the people at Home Depot, and you trust them, and they're going to send you that referral. And then there are the guys who are, hey, they want to do volume. They want to keep their guys busy. They want to make maybe $5,000-$10,000 on the deal. But they want to continue to have a relationship build with you. So you want to find those guys who, maybe they have the beat up weird van, or they might drive a Ford Tempo to the job. All right, perfect. That's the one you want.
I would say it's so situational. If someone's GCing a big $100,000 rehab for you, it's probably worth their time for 15%, $15,000 to manage that. But also if you're just doing a $12,000 rehab, then 15% probably not worth the time. So it's super situational. I don't use that method. We go more per job, and job being like the bathroom in the house, the countertops in the kitchen, the painting the interior walls, because you can track a lot better, your cost as the owner. Hey, I said I was going to pay you $4,200 for this bathroom. I don't care if it took you longer. We agreed on this price. And so, projects don't really run on you on costs in that method. And it's more on them to just get it done as soon as possible, because then they know, the second they finish this bathroom, they get paid. So I've seen that to be the most win-win for my shoes, maybe not for theirs, but that's been working for us.
In my experience, I'm at a lower price point. I'm very similar. I'm trying to find things that are going to be in that under 300 range, because I know they'll sell quickly. So in my experience, I try to pay around $1,000 to $1,200 a week for one person. So if you got 5 guys that are going to come in and rock this house, and it's going to take 4 weeks, that's going to be $5,000 a week. It should be $20,000 in labor. And then I'm going to buy all the materials, or I'm going to have them go to Home Depot and do a phone sale, all that. That's how I try to map it out, but then it's a contract. It's going to be 4 weeks, it's going to be $20,000. If it takes 5 weeks, it's $20,000. If it takes 6 weeks, it's $20,000. And what I learned on my first one, I'm never going to pay you more than what you do. So I'm going to meet you on Saturday. We're going to talk about what the game plan is for the next week. If you meet those goals, I'm going to give you $5,000 for that week. If you don't, I'm not. My current flip, I haven't paid my guys since April 30th. But they've been so slow. They know that. They don't. We've established that rapport, and they haven't even asked me for money because they know it's taking way too long. So that's kind of how I map it out. But the other thing I would say is when you are looking at deals, it's very easy to get caught up in like who's making money, right? And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what everybody else makes as long as you make your money. So like the deal I'm working on now, Matt wholesaled to me. Matt made money off of it. He didn't have to do anything. But you know what he did do is he found the deal, right? And he was too busy to do it, thankfully. So the fact that he made money doesn't impact my money, right? So some people I think get caught up in that, and they think like, oh, this wholesaler is going to make $20,000 off this deal, and then I'm only going to make 30 when I flip it. Doesn't matter. Like it's not the whole, like everybody's got to make money, and there's room for everybody to make money. So focus more on like what your profit is and how you can analyze that deal. And if it doesn't matter if the contractor makes $50,000 or $100,000, as long as you're making your money, who cares, right?
I paid an $85K assignment fee last week on a deal, so just is what it is.
One last thing I would say too is if you want to get into flipping and you're like don't know where to start, just start analyzing deals. Yeah. Get on. You all have access to the MLS. Find a deal, look at them. You know, if you see one that would be a good flip, and then even if you can't buy it, look at the pictures. See, you got to do. You know, make the assumption you got to do X, Y, Z to the kitchen, to the bathroom, to this, and then start pricing that stuff out. Get on Home Depot and start a pro account and start adding in all of the stuff that you would buy, and you can get a really good idea of what things are going to cost. When I first got into investing, that's what I did with my rentals, and I got to a point where I can look at Topeka, the area I want to be in, and I know if it's a 3-bedroom, if I can get it for $75,000, then it's going to cash flow the way I want it to. If it's a 4-bedroom, I can get it, as long as I can get it under 125, it's going to cash flow the way I want it to. If it's a 5-bedroom, it's like 155. So now I can look, I got to the point where it was a lot of work in the beginning, but then I just started, this was before I was even an agent, I just get on Zillow and be like, oh, that one's a 3-bedroom for $99,000. That's pass, I can't do that, you know? That's a 4-bedroom for $110,000. Now that might work. So now we start, you know, just get to that point where you're analyzing all these deals that you gain that confidence to jump in.
Great tips. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time this morning. We really appreciate it. You guys, would you give them a round of applause?
If you get any deals, please send them to me. That's my only plug.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
You guys have a
It
great
has
week.
too many deals, so send them to me first.
We'll see you next week.